Welcome to the Newsome MMA Podcast in association with MMAPlay365, the world's most unique MMA betting advice platform. I'm your host as always, Newsome, and unfortunately due to a clash of schedules, Johnny's unable to join me for this pay-per-view, so it'll be more like the Fight Night Quickies this week, which I know a lot of you guys have been enjoying lately. There's a couple of things I'd like to mention very quickly though. Firstly, I want to thank all the supporters of this channel and everybody who goes out of their way to like, comment and subscribe. I really do appreciate every single one of you guys. And the second thing I'd like to mention is MMAPlay365. As always, we're coming off yet another solid week on the world's most unique MMA betting advice platform. The Dog of the Week cash once again at UFC Norfolk, which by the way, it's $4.99 per event for the Dog of the Week. And since we introduced this package, 4 dogs have cashed from the 6 events. And anybody who knows anything about betting underdogs from a gambling perspective, you know that means profit. Also, all 3 recommended bets cashed last week again. The 3 official bets all cashed too. And the fun gamblers are rolling right now, as well as another pre-made parlay cashed, along with 10 out of 13 parlay pieces coming in too. Which leads me into my next stat. From the last 2 events, there's been 24 parlay pieces in the create your own parlay section. 20 out of these 24 parlay pieces have cashed, which is crazy numbers. And then the Sporter AI went 3-2 on straight predictions and also 3-2 on the methods of victory as well. Another amazing event for MMAPlay365. For all information and package prices, please go to www.MMAplay365.com. But it's time. Let's break down some fights at UFC 248. And once again, there's a short notice fight. We're still waiting to see where it places in the bout order on the night. So we'll start with that one as always. We have Jamal Emmers versus Giga Chikadze. And this is a really interesting fight because technically we should be having a wrestler, grappler versus striker type of fight. You know, Jamal Emmers he's got some really good wrestling. You see it in tape, you know, when he does shoot takedowns, when he does look for those entries and get in on the legs of his opponents. He's got all types of variety in his takedown. So he's got quick singles, he's got quick doubles, he's got a good body lock and takedown from that body lock as well. He really does excel in wrestling, but you can see the dude just loves to bang as well. And he's not a bad striker. You know, it's not one of these cases where he's one-dimensional and he's only got wrestling. His striking's quite erratic. I don't mean that in a bad way either. His movement in regards to getting in and out of range and landed strikes, again, that's not bad. He lands on his opponents. He's got multiple knockouts on his record. It's not as if the dude can't strike, but you can just see, like, when he does go for those legs, when he does go for takedowns, that's an area that you can tell he really excels in because they're high-level takedowns. And then on the other hand, you've got Giga Chikadze, who, you know, he's got that kickboxing background. I think he's got a kickboxing record of 38-6. He's fought for glory. So just from this information, you can tell that the dude's going to have good striking naturally as he's come from that predominant striking background. And you can see that when you watch footage on him, you know, his striking's really clean, it's crisp, it's sharp, it's accurate. When he does start letting his hands go, he's got power as well. But the big problem for me with Giga Chikadze is, as you can imagine, coming from a striking background, he's got to learn that wrestling and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's got to get that to a standard where he can compete competitively against any fighter at this level in the UFC. And I just don't believe that the skills and the qualities in those areas are where they need to be in the UFC to really keep fights standing and make sure that he gives himself the best chance of winning each fight. And this is where I'm leaning Jamal Emmers, because although it's still, you know, a little bit of an unknown whether Jamal Emmers is going to come out with a wrestling heavy game plan, which I do think he does in this fight for reasons I'll explain in a minute. But it's a real concern because if Jamal Emmers does have that game plan, it's a very clear path to victory for Emmers because he is going to get Chikadze down. Once Chikadze is down, I don't think he's going to allow Chikadze to stand back up with ease. And I just think that if he doesn't finish him on the mat, which again is a high possibility, I just feel that he's going to be able to run the clock down, tire Chikadze out, make him frustrated, you know, all those things that are going to look good on the judges' scorecards and put Emmers in a good position on those scorecards as well. But the reason why I do think Emmers is going to have a good game plan in this fight is because I do think this is a fortunate second chance for him after losing to Julian Erosa on the Contender Series via a head kick knockout, which he didn't use any wrestling in that fight. Again, I do think the psychology of that promotion definitely played a factor in the fact that Emmers didn't go to his wrestling, purely because you've got the best chance of getting that UFC contract with a finish. So I do think that played a part. Like I say, this is a fortunate second chance for Jamal Emmers, if I'm being honest, and I do think that he will likely come out and have that mindset of, you know, a win at all costs sort of thing. And you know, he trains with guys like Darrion Caldwell as well, who, you know, he fights in that way. You know, uses his strengths to his advantages. He's a good wrestler, and he goes out there, and regardless of who he's fighting, he goes out there looking for the win. And if that means just grinding out for 15 or 25 minutes, however long the fight is, then he'll do it. So I'm going to take Jamal Emmers to win this fight. I actually think he finds a finish late on the mat. I'm going to take Jamal Emmers to win. I'm going to take him to win via knockout. And in the next fight, we've got a fun fight here. We've got, in the bantamweight division, Dinar Batgarel versus Guido Canetti. Now, again, this is a really interesting fight. You know, Batgarel made his UFC debut against Alateng Haley, and it was a good fight. And you can tell that, you know, Batgarel is more of a striker than a wrestler or a grappler. He does have that in his back pocket. I've seen it in previous fights on tape, but predominantly he's a striker, you know, sort of Muay Thai K1 style. Doesn't really move too much, but he reacts well. His counters are there, and you know, it's more of a stalking approach opposed to bouncing around the cage, which is actually completely the opposite when you're looking at Guido Canetti. You know, Canetti is, you know, he's not predominantly a striker. I do think his game in MMA is a more all-round style. So, you know, wherever the fight goes, he can strike, he can wrestle, he can grapple, he's got submissions. So he is definitely more of an all-round fighter. But in regards to movement, the dude just seems to fly about everywhere, especially early on. He does seem to tire a little bit later in fights, but especially early on for the first 2 rounds, the dude's got a lot of movement. You never really know what he's going to throw. He's unorthodox, unpredictable. And this is actually something that I think is going to win him this fight, because I don't believe that Canetti is, you know, ever going to hit sort of like the top 15 rankings, but the guy is solid at this level. He's going to be hard to beat for opponents facing him. And I feel the same with Dinar Batgarel. I think that there's definitely a chance of Batgarel getting off on his strikes, landing something, putting Guido down, and ultimately finishing him. But if Guido starts his fight fast and smart, and looks for takedowns and gets Batgarel down to the mat, really slows him down, really takes the strengths of Batgarel out of the equation, because if Batgarel isn't vertical on his feet and striking, and instead he's on his back, you know, we saw it with Haley Alateng in his last fight. You know, he was taken down, he was controlled for periods, and you know, he was defending takedowns early on. You know, once he was getting taken down, he was standing back up a little bit early on, but then, you know, when it got later into the fight, you could see that takedown defense waned, that get up game waned, and he was being controlled. And listen, Guido is good on the mat. You know, he's tricky to deal with. He's got good top pressure. He's got good submissions, and that's ultimately where I think this fight's going to go, and how I see Guido Canetti winning the fight. As long as he stays away from the hard hands and the hard kicks of Batgarel early on, closer distance, get the takedowns, I think he wins this fight. And I actually trust Guido to do that. He does look for takedowns very early on in most of his fights. So I think Guido Canetti is going to get Batgarel down, and I think he's going to find a submission. So I've got Guido Canetti to win. I'm going to take him to win via submission. And in the next fight, we've got Emily Whitmire versus Polyana Viana. Two fighters that have been a little underwhelming lately, particularly Polyana Viana after, you know, back-to-back losses. But, you know, it's going to be a really interesting fight, because both women need this win. It's hard for me to trust Viana's black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You know, she went out there and got submitted by Veronica Macedo in the last fight, which Macedo has got tricky submissions, but from someone that's supposedly a world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, legit black belt, and going in there and getting submitted against Macedo, who I believe is a newly crowned brown belt, it's not a great look. And, you know, as for Whitmire, from her perspective, she went out there and she got absolutely blown out the water and submitted by a black belt. So you can see it's quite a tough fight to call, but I'm going to side with Emily Whitmire in this fight. I believe her striking is just that little bit better than Viana's. I think her wrestling is better than Viana's. So I think regardless of who shoots, even if it's Viana shooting on Whitmire, I think Whitmire will be able to, catch the scrambles, look for reversals, and ultimately get on top. And if she is taken down, I think she can get back up to her feet as well against someone like Viana. And like I say, from an offensive side, Whitmire could be the one shooting takedowns herself and getting on top. And when she is on top, even when we saw her on top against Amanda Ribas, who subsequently submitted her the following round, she still looked like she had good control in top position. So I think Emily Whitmire is going to score takedowns in this fight. I think she's going to definitely be okay on the feet, and I think she's going to be able to get a decision victory on the scorecard. So I'm going to take Emily Whitmire to win. I'm going to take her to win via decision. And in the next fight, we've got Gerald Meerschaert versus Deron Winn in the middleweight division, and this is a really, really intriguing fight when you dig deep and look into it, because obviously we know what Deron Winn's about right now. He's a solid wrestler, protege of Daniel Cormier in mixed martial arts. He's actually got decent striking as well. We've seen two different types of performances from Deron Winn. We saw the 150 plus strikes against Derek Spicely on his UFC debut, and then we saw the 6 takedowns against Darren Stewart in his fight after that. And to be honest with you, that fight with Darren Stewart, I do think that Deron Winn won that fight, but it was a close fight, no robbery or anything like that. And I've got some concerns with Winn, and I've got some real positives. So the concerns is his cardio. He's small. He's a 5'6" middleweight. He's absolutely tiny for the division, and it's crazy to think he used to fight at 205 as well. But his cardio is not great. That is a concern, because he's a wrestling heavy guy, and when you're wrestling inside the cage and trying to take big guys down, middleweights that are sort of 5'11", 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2", some of these guys, it's going to play a factor in your fight, if you don't really sort that out. And he's relatively new to mixed martial arts, and he's come from the wrestling background, so maybe give him some time, and that cardio can be fixed over at AKA with Daniel Cormier and the rest of the guys over there. But right now it is a concern. It's probably my only concern. The dude is a little bit hittable, but he has to be to get into range and really strike with his opponents. But the good things that I like about him is exactly that. He will take some shots to come forward, to wing bombs. He hits hard. He throws in combinations, and his entries are, as you can imagine, just unbelievably quick, unbelievably accurate. Solid entries, big takedowns. He can lift these guys up and slam them all day long. His top control is decent as well. He's not just a one-dimensional wrestler with no BJJ, no grappling. He can grapple, and yeah, he looks good down on the mat. Now, in this fight, where it makes it interesting is because Gerald Meerschaert is definitely more of a submission grappler than a striker. He can strike for sure. He's a dog in there, and he's not deficient in his striking. But where he really excels is down on the mat, and he actually loves fighters taking him down because he can find sweeps, reversals, and he's good in scrambles as well. So if the scramble doesn't go his way and he's laid on his back, he can find sweeps and reversals from many different positions, or he can throw up triangles and arm bars. And this is what makes this fight really interesting, because if Deron Winn takes him down with the size disadvantage of Winn, Gerald Meerschaert can absolutely throw up triangles and arm bars, and it'll be relatively easy for him to do with how small Deron Winn is. Or he could even try and grab a choke, a guillotine, and sweep that way, and then he can start working on top. And that's the key thing here. If Gerald Meerschaert can get on top of Deron Winn, I don't believe that Winn will be able to get back up to his feet in that round. So he'll either be finished or the round will end. And the likelihood is Meerschaert would have won that round. So I'm having a real difficulty picking Deron Winn to win this fight. And the reason being is I think Deron Winn is going to respect the grappling accolades of Gerald Meerschaert, just like he respected the grappling submission threat of Eric Spicely. And I think that's the reason why he didn't take Eric Spicely down a lot in that fight, because he was concerned of being submitted. Now, with Meerschaert is a totally different striker to Eric Spicely. He throws more variety. He is more confident in his hands. He's more confident in his feet. So if this fight ends up a stand-up fight, it would not shock me if Meerschaert just played on the outside, throwing long kicks at Winn, keeping him at bay, tiring him out. Like I say, I've only spoken about Deron Winn looking for takedowns. What if Gerald Meerschaert tries to take Winn down? Now, I don't think he's going to get in on his hips and shoot a double leg or a single leg and get him down that way. But absolutely, he could clinch up with Winn and trip him down to the mat, put him on his back. And like I say, if that's the case, if Meerschaert can get Winn down, I don't think Winn's going to be able to stand back up or sweep on Meerschaert. So I just feel that although I really, really like Deron Winn as a fighter, I'm really struggling stylistically to to pick him to win this fight. I just feel that there's a lot of advantages stylistically for Gerald Meerschaert. And like I say, if the cardio hasn't been fixed of Winn, then it's going to be, it's going to be difficult for Winn to get a win in this fight. So I'm going to pick Gerald Meerschaert to win. I actually think he could find a submission in this fight. So I'm going with Gerald Meerschaert to win. And I'm going to pick him to win via submission. And talking of submissions, in the next fight, also in the middleweight division, we've got Rodolfo Vieira versus Saparbek Safarov. Now, the line on this fight is so wide, and it's very obvious to see why. Rodolfo Vieira, I think, is taking a step down in this fight in regards to level of opponent. I don't mean any disrespect to Saparbek Safarov, but from going from Pihota to Safarov, I do think Safarov is the lesser fighter, and I just think we're going to see the same outcome as what we always see. Rodolfo Vieira's striking isn't too bad. It's definitely something that's improving, but his grappling is absolutely world class. Go and look at his accolades and his jiu-jitsu credentials, man. The dude is probably top 3 best Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighters in mixed martial arts today. So he's unbelievable on the mat. Once it gets to the mat, which I think this fight will, it's just going to be over not long after that. So for Safarov, he's got to stay at distance. He's got to not get in close with Rodolfo Vieira. He's definitely got to not get taken down, and he's got to try and knock him out early on. I almost think for Safarov, he's probably best going into this fight, just spending the first couple of minutes getting some reads, and then just trying to explode on the dude and get him out. That's going to put him in risk and in danger of getting taken down. But if he doesn't do that, Vieira's going to find the takedowns anyway at some point, and he'll submit him shortly after that. It's a very, very tough fight for Safarov, and unfortunately, I don't see any other outcome in this fight than Vieira by submission. So I'm going to take Rodolfo Vieira to win. I'm going to take him to win via submission. And in the next fight, the returning Marco Madsen versus Austin Hubbard. And again, talking about lines, this line is wider than what I thought it would be after watching tape. Marco Madsen, Olympic level wrestler coming from Cage Warriors. We know all about these Cage Warriors guys at this point. That they're all coming into the UFC with solid battle-tested experience, and Marco Madsen is not too dissimilar. Although he did only have a couple of fights in Cage Warriors, he's at least felt that. But the guy's a good wrestler. His striking is absolutely a work in progress, but he can get in on the hips, he can get takedowns, he can remain top control. But what worries me in his last fight in Cage Warriors is he was doing great for the first couple of rounds. Like I say, scoring takedowns at will, lifting his opponent, slamming him down, getting some good top control timing down on the mat. But then sort of towards the end of the fight, he sort of started fading a little bit. And once he started fading, the takedowns weren't there as much. He was then starting to get outstruck. And this is actually a real concern in this fight, because Austin Hubbard is not the type of guy that you want that to happen to. Austin Hubbard is a guy with good cardio. He's a guy that can defend takedowns. I do think Mark Madsen gets him down. Definitely in this fight. I think he'll get him down a few times, especially early on. But the longer this fight goes on, if Hubbard can remain in this fight and keep standing back up and, keep this fight really competitive, he's going to give Mark Madsen a very, very difficult time at the end of this round. And he could even grab a finish at the end of the round as well. It's like I say, I think it's a very interesting fight, and it's very good matchmaking, because I don't think the takedowns are going to come as easy in this fight for Marco Madsen, for 3 rounds anyway, as what they've come in his previous fights. So with that being said, I do think that developments are going to be made on Mark Madsen's side at this point. I do think that, with him being relatively new in MMA, his striking's still going to be improving. That could help him get takedowns. The better his striking gets, the better his entries will get. That's a fact in MMA. So I am still going to side with Mark Madsen, but man, if Hubbard pulled this out as an underdog, I would not be surprised at all. So I'm going to take Mark Madsen to win, and I'm going to take him to win via decision. And in the next fight, finally, we get to see the bantamweight Sean O'Malley back once again after all this time off in USADA and everything that's gone on in that respect. If you don't know about it, go and do a bit of research. It's all widely documented on the web. I'm not going to go into it right here, but Sean O'Malley's coming back. He's fighting José Alberto Quiñónez as the prelim headline fight. And it's a good fight, man. I think it's going to be an active fight, fast-paced fight. We've got O'Malley, who's predominantly a striker, really good volume, really good distance management. He'll be sliding in and out of range, doesn't tend to get hit too much. Quiñónez is a dog in there. He will be the opposite. He'll be trying to close distance, getting close to O'Malley, make sure that he's not just getting outstruck at range. He'll be looking to close distance, get takedowns, get O'Malley on his back, try and work on the mat. O'Malley will probably stand back up if that happens, and he'll look to take down again. It's really going to be a dog fighter versus a real technical distance fighter in O'Malley, and I'm really excited to see how this fight goes down. I do think that O'Malley is going to get the better of Quiñónez, though, in most areas. I don't think he's going to be getting taken down too easily. And if he does get taken down, I think he can stand back up relatively quickly as well. That's not going to bode well for, the confidence of Quiñónez if that scenario does happen. But I just think O'Malley is just going to put a real volume clinic on Quiñónez in this fight. I think Quiñónez is really going to struggle to get his game going. And I think before he does start getting his game going, I think it's going to be over. Like I say, I just think the accumulation of strikes that's going to be coming in from O'Malley, his activity, his accuracy, and just, like I say, the sheer numbers that is likely going to land on Quiñónez is just not going to end well. So I'm going to pick Sean O'Malley to win this fight, and I'm going to pick him to win via knockout. And in the next fight, we've got Alex Cowboy Oliveira versus Max Griffin. And I love this fight. I think it's going to be an absolute banger. It's going to be a war. Both fighters always come to fight. They're never taking or wanting to take a backward step. Obviously, only one fighter can come forward. But yeah, both fighters like to come to war. And it's going to be fun for as long as it lasts. And I feel that with Alex Oliveira, I would normally say he's the more well-rounded fighter in this spot, but actually Max Griffin's been shooting a lot of takedowns lately. His top control's been looking a little bit better. He's always really been a striker, so I think Griffin's really rounding his game off quite well here. And Cowboy, he can start off fast, he can fade late, but like I say, he's always going to be in the fight. He's always going to be down to swing bombs. And I've actually got a bit of a more specific outcome for how I see this fight and how it's going to play out. I think Cowboy's going to start off fast in this fight. I think he's going to come forward. I think he's going to land some hard shots on Griffin. I think he's going to hurt him early on. Now, this is the thing with Max Griffin. He can be hurt relatively easily. We've seen that in the past. We've seen him in some really difficult spots where we're thinking, it's only a matter of time before the ref stops this fight. But the dude has a solid chin, and he's got this ability to just not get put unconscious, which is crazy. And I actually think that we'll watch this fight on the night and we'll think we've seen this fight before, and you'll be looking back to the Alex Cowboy Oliveira and Yancy Medeiros fight when Cowboy had Medeiros hurt early on. He put everything into the finish. Medeiros wouldn't go away, wouldn't go down, and then Cowboy subsequently faded from that moment, and Yancy Medeiros took over and finished him. And I actually think that we see a very similar fight play out here. I think Cowboy's going to hurt him early on. I think he's going to have him back to the cage. I think he's going to be winging bombs, winging elbows, punches, knees, kicks. I think he's going to be trying to put Max Griffin out. I think he fails to put Max Griffin out. I think Max Griffin comes back into the fight after Alex Oliveira's slowed down a little bit. I think Griffin starts to put it on Oliveira, sort of into the second round, into the third round. I think Max Griffin starts to look really, really good, and I think Max Griffin finds a finish late in the fight. So I'm going to take Max Griffin to win this fight, and I'm going to take him to win via knockout. And in the next fight, we've got Neil Magny returning against Li Jingliang, who seems to be on fire lately. And, it's really tough to go back and watch Neil Magny's last fight with Santiago Ponzinibbio, because I feel like it was a terrible performance from him. I know that it was Santiago Ponzinibbio, who still for me is one of the best fighters in the division. I know it was in Argentina, which is the home country of Santiago Ponzinibbio, but there's no, you've got an excuse of losing that fight if it's competitive. But this fight was not competitive at all. And, it was really disappointing to see that type of performance from Magny. He was allowing himself to get beaten up. He was eating too many leg kicks. He wasn't checking him. He was eating too many shots to the head. He wasn't moving his head too much. He wasn't looking for takedowns. It was just a really, really flat performance. And actually, with Neil Magny, when you go back to his recent record since 2017, he got blasted out of the water by Rafael dos Anjos. Then he fought Carlos Condit, who's now retired. Then he fought Craig White, who was absolutely not UFC level competition. And then, like I've just mentioned, the Santiago Ponzinibbio fight where he just looked really flat. So I'm really struggling to see or get a read of what sort of Magny we're going to see inside the cage, because it's so hard to get a read on where he's at. I don't think he's going to come out looking the best he's ever looked. I think those days are well behind him. And how much do you take from that Ponzinibbio loss? did he take that much of a beating? Was it a life-changing beating? It wouldn't surprise me if it was. He didn't take too much damage and then get left unconscious or anything like that, but he just took a real beating from a solid guy. And how are you going to return against someone like that? You know, it remains to be seen. And Jingliang, I think, he's not the best opponent for Magny to be returning against. He's a tricky guy. He's a guy that's aggressive. He's a guy that'll come forward. He's a guy that'll look to stand and bang. He'll happily eat some shots to give some shots. He hits hard. He could really hurt Magny in similar ways to what Ponzinibbio hurt him, and like I just don't think it's a good fight for Magny to come back to. I would have liked to have seen Magny drop the level of competition just a little bit, just to ease him back into it and really see where he's at and get him back in the win column, and then you can start giving him fights like Jingliang. But I think Jingliang has got a good fight ahead of him in this fight. I think he's going to be able to close distance. He's going to be able to land strikes on Magny. The only thing that Lee is going to have to be careful of is getting into the clinch positions and the body lock of Magny, because even though Magny has always sort of been hit and miss and up and down on his striking against certain types of opponents, he's always had wrestling in his back locker, and he can get into top control. And you know, once he is on top, if he does get on top of Jingliang, I'm not convinced Lee can stand back up very easily. I do think that's where Magny's path to victory is in this fight, but you know, he's got to get to that position, and if he doesn't get Jingliang out of there whilst he's on the mat, you know, it'll go to the next round and it'll stay, you know, obviously all fights start standing, so he'll have to get him down there again. And I don't know, I'm just not convinced he can do that for 2 or 3 rounds. So I think Jingliang is going to land shots in this fight. I think he's going to have fun in this fight. I think he's going to get ahead in this fight. I am going to give Neil Magny the benefit of the doubt in regards to durability. You know, he took a lot of shots off Ponzi, which would have dropped a lot of, or finished a lot of fighters way earlier than what he was finished at. So I think Jingliang is just going to rack up a volume-based decision here. I'm going to go with Jingliang to win. I'm going to pick him to win via decision. And in the next fight, we've got Beneil Dariush versus Drakkar Klose, and again another really good fight. You know, I've picked against Beneil Dariush a couple of times now, thinking that, you know, his best days may have been behind him, but you know, he's been proving me wrong fight after fight. And you know, I'm finally going to flip back to Beneil Dariush in this fight, because you know, under Master Rafael Cordero over at King's MMA, he's been with Beneil Dariush for a long time. He's got Beneil Dariush striking in his Muay Thai to a position where even in his last fight against Frank Camacho, it was looking crisp, it was looking sharp, it was looking accurate, and he is looking like he's coming back to form. And this is definitely something that needs to be noted in this fight, because it's key. Like a few fights ago, myself and others were saying that Beneil Dariush, we could have seen the best of him, and you know, it might be sort of downhill from here. But he's, like I say, he's definitely proving those people wrong, and it looking like he's coming back to form. Now, this fight's really interesting with Drakkar Klose, because Drakkar Klose is again an all-round type of fighter. He's got decent striking, decent wrestling, decent grappling. But when these guys exchange, we're going to be seeing the southpaw versus orthodox. We're going to be seeing some nice body kicks from Beneil Dariush. This is going to want to make Drakkar Klose close the distance, so he's not eating body kick. You know, I feel that Drakkar Klose is going to be best served in this fight in sort of boxing range, and landing hard shots on Beneil Dariush, really wear him down, try and knock him out. But the problem with Drakkar Klose, I don't think he slides back out of range as fluently as he comes into range. So what this leads me to believe is that Beneil Dariush is going to get some clinch positions in this fight, some body lock. And historically, this is where Beneil Dariush really flourishes in fights, and this is where he really performs his best, because he can get takedowns from those positions, or he can just ground you out on the cage. You know, whichever. If he can't get the takedowns, he'll just stay in the position and just land enough shots for the referee not to break off the cage, and then he'll go for another takedown attempt, again keeping the referee away. And what this does, it just runs the clock down and allows him to win rounds. And I believe Drakkar Klose can be put in those positions. I've seen him in clinch positions in many of his previous fights. I don't think he's one of those fighters where as soon as it gets into a clinch position, he looks to break and exit out of it. He can be susceptible to that. So I think Beneil Dariush is going to be able to get in these clinch positions. I think he's going to be able to keep out the way of danger. I think for Drakkar Klose to win this fight, I genuinely feel that he's got to finish him. I don't think he's going to submit him. I'd be shocked to see him submit a legit black belt like Beneil Dariush. And in regards to the striking, you know, Dariush has been knocked out a few times, but these are by big explosive hitters, and I don't think Drakkar Klose is sort of in that band of of fighters, and I just really don't see Beneil Dariush being unconscious in this fight. I think he's going to be able to get takedowns, especially early on, and it could be even one of those cases if he doesn't get close out with a submission. It could be one of those fights where Dariush wins the first 2 rounds and then, wanes a little bit in regards to his gas tank and cardio in the third round, and then Klose wins that third round. So I just see Beneil Dariush winning this fight. I think he's got a couple of paths to victory. He can either get Klose down, use his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and grab a submission, or just grind him out for 3 rounds, similar to what he did against Thiago Moises. Like I say, that 3 rounds might be 2 rounds, but if it goes to a decision, I think Beneil Dariush will have won 2 rounds out of 3. I'm going for the latter, so I'm going to pick Beneil Dariush to win. I'm going to take him to win via decision. And in the next fight, we've got Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk for the Women's Strawweight Championship. And this is such a good fight. You've got Weili Zhang, the fighter completely on form, full of confidence. She just ran through Jessica Andrade in her home country to become the first Chinese champion in the UFC. Joanna Jędrzejczyk's obviously been a staple fighter in the women's strawweight division since the strawweight division opened. Phenomenal fighter, huge numbers of volume, great striking, good defense when it comes to her wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So it's a really, really good fight. Now, the problem that I've got for Weili Zhang in this fight is, like I've already mentioned, the numbers that Joanna puts up. This fighter consistently puts up numbers north of 100 strikes, and in 5-round fights, the numbers are just pure extraordinary. And on more than one occasion, she's put up numbers north of 200 significant fights, which is just insane. So this is something that Weili Zhang definitely has to consider in this fight. She can't let Joanna really start controlling the range, controlling the pace, because she will have those numbers put up against her. And it's going to be tough for Weili Zhang. It's not, I don't think it's going to be an easy fight for her, but it is a fight that I do think that she can win, because historically, the types of fighters that Joanna struggled against in the past are the styles what Weili Zhang holds. Weili Zhang's aggressive. She comes forward. Yes, her striking's not as technical as Joanna's. Her volume's not as high as Joanna's. But if you can really push Joanna back, if you can hit her hard and make her really cautious about coming forward, making her think twice before she comes forward, before she starts landing combinations, that really sets Joanna off a game. And I think this is definitely, like I've already mentioned, the style that Weili Zhang possesses that she can really use to her advantage in this fight. If Zhang doesn't come out aggressive and doesn't try and hit her hard early on, I think that Joanna's going to start pulling the early rounds away from Weili Zhang, and I then think it's going to be a bit of a mountain to climb in the later rounds of the fight, when both fighters are a little bit more tired. But Joanna's got this experience multiple times of 5-round fights, and not only going the 5 rounds, but making sure that she's winning the majority of the 5 rounds, and even more importantly, making sure she's winning the championship rounds, because the championship rounds really define 5-round fights in championship fights, because the fighter that does have that championship experience will know how to win rounds 4 and 5. So it's something that Weili Zhang really needs to, she needs to come into this fight with a very good game plan. She needs to come in very composed. If she starts getting teed off early on in the first couple of minutes, or if Joanna's not there to be hit in the first couple of minutes, she needs not to panic and just stick with the game plan and coming forward. But I think that she can do it. I think that Weili Zhang can get in the face of Joanna. I think she can chase her down. I don't think she'll follow her. I think she'll cut off angles really well. She'll push Joanna back to the cage. A little like what Rose Namajunas did in the first fight with her and Joanna, And even parts of the second fight as well, Joanna fell victim to that type of style. Rose Namajunas has got a similar-ish style to Weili Zhang in regards to pressure, aggression, and striking. Again, Rose is a lot longer. She's a lot more technical than Zhang, but Zhang's like a pit bull, man. She'll come forward and she'll throw in combinations, and I even think that Zhang can mix in some takedowns in this fight as well. I do think that we see Joanna a couple of times get taken down. Once Zhang's on top, she's got really good jiu-jitsu, she's got top control, and this is why I'm leaning with Zhang. I just feel that she's got more ways to win this fight. She can win it on the feet. She could knock Joanna out, just like Rose Namajunas did. She could take her down. We saw her taken down against Shevchenko a couple of times, so Zhang's got that option. And for Joanna to win, again, it is a clear path to victory, but I just feel that the momentum, the form, the aggression, and just the style versus style clash, and like I've already mentioned, Joanna historically having problems against these types of styles, I just see Weili Zhang winning this fight and remaining the champion. So I'm going to take Weili Zhang to win. I'm not sure she gets her out of there, and this is also going to surprise a few people. I think Weili Zhang can win 3 out of the 5 rounds on the scorecards, even though Joanna puts up good numbers. I just feel that Zhang can reduce those numbers with that aggression, with hitting her hard and making Joanna very nervy in the fight. So I actually think Weili Zhang's going to win a 5-round decision here. So I'm going to take Weili Zhang to win. I'm going to take to win via decision. And in the next fight, in the main event of the evening, it's the middleweight championship on the line. We've got Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero. And what a fight this is. Yes, Yoel Romero, there's a lot of questions about why this guy's fighting a title fight after coming off a loss to Paolo Borrachina. But listen, Borrachina's injured. It was a close fight. It was an absolute war. This is likely going to be Romero's last chance to win a title. I'm all up for it. I think it's a great fight. Israel Adesanya's done what no man has done before and called Yoel Romero out, wanting to fight the beast that is the freak of nature. And I cannot wait for this fight because it's just, again, a huge clash of styles. You've got Israel Adesanya, who in my opinion is the most elusive striker in the UFC, probably the best striker in the UFC, the most accurate, the most dangerous, the most hard to hit. Israel Adesanya is legitimately elite. It's taken him 2 years from his UFC debut to become a UFC champion, which is insane. I love everything about the guy. Like I say, he's got speed, he's got style, he's got movement, he's got a variety of attacks. He's got a variety of attacks from different angles. You don't know what angles he's going to take. You don't know what his distance management is going to be like. You don't know when he's going to become aggressive, when he's going to become defensive. You don't know what attack he's going to throw, whether it's going to be a straight punch, a hook, a kick, a spin attack. He's just so hard to read inside the cage, and you can feel that I'm excited talking about him because I just feel that we're not going to see many of these types of fighters in a lifetime of watching mixed martial arts, and that's why I'm so excited every time Israel Adesanya fights. He's a special fighter, and Yoel Romero's got his work cut out for him here because Yoel Romero, typically not really known for his volume, is more of a patient fighter that will look to explode. But I actually really like Israel Adesanya to win this fight for that reason and that reason alone. Israel, the best chance you've got of beating Israel is packing volume and trying to match some elusiveness and speed that Adesanya possesses. That's how I feel the best chance of beating Israel Adesanya is. The style that I don't think beats Israel Adesanya is a style that Yoel Romero has, where, like I say, it's more patient. The volume's not there, the elusiveness isn't there, but he will just explode forward. That is basically giving yourself a puncher's chance to beat Israel Adesanya, which is possible, I suppose. And, if Yoel Romero does catch Israel Adesanya with a hard shot to the chin, he hits like a truck. You hear every single opponent that's ever fought against Romero say the same things about him. So there is that chance that if Romero does catch Adesanya with one punch in this fight, he could put him away. But man, I just don't see it happening at all. I just think Adesanya's danger awareness and distance management is too good. What he sees from his opponents coming at him from an attack perspective, the dude's just insane. Like, he doesn't get hit that often. And I know he did against Gastelum. I feel that, Adesanya took a lot of fights in such a short period of time. I do think his body was feeling it a little bit. And I think if they fought again right now, that fight wouldn't be anywhere near as close as what it was last time they fought. I think Israel Adesanya is going to be fresh in this fight. I think he's going to come to bring it in this fight. I think he's going to land a lot of volume, especially early on against Romero. I think Romero is going to be tired quicker than he thinks he might be tired in this fight. And again, I just think he's going to put on an accumulation of volume. And I think at some point, Israel Adesanya is just going to start putting hard shots on Romero. I think we see Romero drop. I think we see Israel Adesanya finish him and remain the middleweight champion of the world. I'm going to take Israel Adesanya to win. I'm going to take him to win via knockout. And that's it for this week's podcast, guys. As always, please make sure you check out Newsome MMA for all fighter predictions from the best YouTube guys, media interviews and content from MMA Fight Nights, content collaboration with Heavy Duty Fight Management, and you can even request MMA services such as media credential requests and live commentary too. All this at www.newsomemma.co.uk. And finally, MMA Play 365. We have a platform to suit all types of gamblers with many different package options and subscription term lengths to choose from too. MMA Play 365 has all the betting advice for every UFC event that you'll ever need, and that's at www.mmaplay365.com. Please like this podcast, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next week.